Hello class, Miss Emami here, and today we are going to have another lesson for our quadratic relations unit. And in today's lesson we are going to put together everything that we have learned in the past 3 lessons and talk about the vertex form of quadratic relations. So that means we learned about the A factor, how it is going to cause vertical stretch or compression and change our step property. We learned about the K factor, shifting up and down, H factor, shifting left and right, and now we're going to put all this together and call it the vertex form of a quadratic equation. Now, when we have y equals a, x minus h squared plus k, the vertex of this parabola will be located in location h and k. If you remember, h is the factor for shift right or left, and k is the factor for shift up or down, and a was what we multiplied our step pattern with, and this is causing vertical stretch or compression. Now, how you are going to graph? You start with the coordinate of a vertex and plot it. So you're going to put one dot representing 1 point representing the vertex, and then you have to find your step pattern by starting with the original step pattern 1, 3, 5, and you multiply that by a to give you the new step pattern, and that will help you to find more points. So let's get started and do some examples here. Okay. Given y equals 2x plus 1 squared minus 8. Now, the first thing I want to do here is I want to make sure we can recognize all different factors that we have here. The number which is multiplied by whatever is being squared is our a, so a is 2. Now, h is what's added or subtracted inside the bracket, and if you remember, we have to choose the opposite. So if this is plus 1, your h will be minus 1, and then your k is the number that you add or subtract to the squared value, so your k is negative 8. Now, the vertex is, we know, as at h and k, so it's at negative 1 and negative 8. Now, the direction of the parabola, a is a positive number, so we know that the parabola opens up. Now, because this a is greater than 1, so it is actually vertically stretched. It's going to be narrower. So it's vertically stretched, not compressed. So I'm going to write here stretched. And now we can find the step pattern here. So the original one is 1, 3, 5, and we have to multiply that with our a value. So times 2 times 2 times 2. So the step pattern will be 2, 6, 10. and I am going to highlight our step pattern. Now you have to be a little bit careful about where you want to put your axes. So your vertex is at -1 and -8, and you're opening down. So what's going to happen is I am going to put my x-axis a little bit higher, maybe somewhere here, because I want to make sure that I can start from -1 and -8. So please remember, you want to label your axes and you want to put your scale on. So we start from the vertex, which is -1 and -8. So -1 and then y value 1, 2, 3, 4, -5, -6, -7, -8. So that's where the vertex is. And now we are going to do our pattern. 1 across and then 2 up. 1, 2, 2. Then 1 across and 6 up. So 1 across and 6 up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then the next one is 1 across and 10 up, which won't fit here. So 2 points from each side is enough most of the time. If you can't fit it on your grid, that's okay. You don't need to do 3 points from each side. And then we go to the other side. 1 across and 2 up, and then 1 across and 6 up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now use a smooth curve and connect. And in order to finish your work, make sure that you label your graph with the equation. So y equals 2x plus 1 squared minus 8. Now let's do one more example. Y equals negative x minus 3 squared plus 4. Now the way you can think about this, when there is a negative, it means that the number is actually -1. You don't need to write it when it's -1. So actually I'm going to write it like this, so everything sort of becomes clear now for you. That when we have our equation like this, that means the number here is actually -1, and that will make it easier for us to recognize that A is -1. And then H, remember what's in the bracket, you have to write the opposite. So it's x minus 3, so H will be +3. And this is your K value. So K equals 4. So the vertex is at 3 and 4. Now A is negative, so that means A is less than 0. So that means the parabola would open down. And A is actually, the value of A is -1. So it's neither stretched nor compressed. It's neither stretched nor compressed. And if we want to look at the step pattern, we start with the original one, which is 1, 3, and 5, and then we multiply it by our A value, Now, I'm sure you know why I'm putting a bracket here. You cannot have two symbols one after each other. So that's -1, -3, -5. So that's going to be our step pattern. And I'm sure you know that the negative here implies down. So the negative here implies that you go down and not up. And now we are ready to graph this function, this quadratic relation. And again, the vertex is at 3 and 4, and it opens down. So when you put your axis on, it's very important to pay attention to the direction of the opening, as well as where your vertex is, in order to put your axis in the right place, so you will have enough space to do your graphing. So again, X and Y, and we are going to put our scale as well. So 1, 2, 3, -1, -2, 2, 4, 3, 4, -5, so on and so forth. Make sure that you have some scale on both X and Y axis. And now we start by plotting our vertex. So 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3, 4. And then 1 across, and -1 here means go 1 down. 1 across, 1 down. And then again, -3, 1 across, -3 means 1 down. 1 across, 1, 2, 3, 1 down. And then 1 across, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5 down. And then we do the same thing from the other side. 1 across, 1 down, 1 across, 3 down, and 1 across, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 down. And now we are going to connect these points, and we finish by labeling it with the equation. So y equals -x minus 3 squared plus 4. And now we can move to our last example for graphing. Y equals 0.5, x plus 1 squared plus 2. So the most important thing is to recognize what is your A, 0.5, what is your H, which is -1, and what is your K, which is 2. Remember that what's in the bracket, the H is always opposite in sign. So here is +1, so your H will be -1. Now the vertex is at -1 and 2, and the parabola opens up because A is positive, so it opens up. Now this number is less than 1, so 0.5 is less than 1. That means that we have a compression, vertical compression. That means it's going to look wider. Now we also have to find our step pattern. So we start with the original 1, 3, 5, and we have to multiply that with our A value. So times 0.5 times 0.5 and times 0.5. So the step pattern is half, 1.5, and 2.5. I am going to highlight the step pattern. Now again it's at -1 and 2 and it opens up, so keep that in mind. That means I'm going to put my x-axis a little bit lower. Now I am going to choose scale this one time, and the reason for that is because I have to go up by half. It's easier if I choose a different scale, so that's why I'm choosing a different scale, because it's easier, because I have to go up by half as well. So I will go like each two squares are going to be one unit of scale, so I can easily have one square will represent half. So we start by finding the vertex, so -1 and 2, which is here. Now we have to go 1 across and half up. Remember, 1 unit is now 2 squares, so 1 across and half up. Then again 1 across, 1 unit across, and then 1.5 up, and again 1 across and 2.5 up, 2.5, and then we do it from the other side. 1 across and then 1 across. Remember, 1 unit is 2 squares, so 1 across, and this time 1.5 up, and then 1 across and 2.5 up, and then we will connect all these, and we finish by labeling. In the next part of our lesson, we are going to do exactly opposite of what we did in the first part of lesson, and it's called writing equation from a graph. And what it means is that a graph is going to be given to us, and then we are going to look at the graph and write the equation that will lead into that graph. Now, the steps to do that is, first of all, you recognize what is your vertex in terms of the h and k, a point, and then that will allow you to sort of substitute that in this generic equation. Opposite of what you see, h goes here and then k goes here, and now the next part will be finding a. Now, in order to find a, we substitute one point from the graph, and typically it cannot be the vertex, anything other than the vertex. So we substitute one point other than vertex in the equation, and then we find a value. So I'm going to do few examples here for you to see how this works. So write the equation for the following parabola in vertex form. Now, first thing is to recognize where your vertex is, which is here. And as you can see, please pay attention to the scale. This is 2, that means this is 1, and then this is 5, so 1, 2, 3, 4. That means the vertex is at 1 and 4. So first thing is to write the vertex, which is at 1 and 4. Remember, you first write the x, then you write the y, and then this is your h, and this is your k. I'm going to write the general equation here. Y equals a x minus h squared plus k. Now y equals, we don't know what's a. If h is 1, that means here you have to put opposite, so minus 1 squared plus k. Now the next step is to sub a point. Now you have to find the point where you can exactly read the coordinates as integers. For example, picking this point, not a good idea because you cannot exactly know what the coordinates are. This point is a good point because it is exact. The coordinates are integers, and this point is 0 and 6. So you are going to sub this here. Remember, the first is x, the second is y. So I'm going to say you sub 0 and 6. That means where you so this is your x, this is your y. So when you see y, you're going to put 6 equals, we don't know what's a, so we leave it as a. Then x is 0, 0 minus 1 squared plus, my mistake here. We know what's k. K is actually 4. I forgot to sub it here. Plus 4. Plus 4. Now, order of operation, bed mass. If you forget, I'm going to write it here. Order of operation, bed mass. So bracket, exponent, division, multiplication, addition, subtraction. So we have to do brackets first. So we have to do this first. 6 equals a. 0 minus 1 is negative 1 squared plus 4. Order of operation, next is exponent. Now, negative 1 in brackets squared will give you 1, okay? So 6 equals, you typically don't write a times 1, you write 1a plus 4. And now we want to solve this. So the first thing is to isolate this. That means 4 has to be going to the other side. So 6 minus 4 equals 1a. I'm going to continue here. 6 minus 4 is 2 equals 1a. And 1a is the same as a. So 2 equals a. Now, in order to finish your work, I'm asking you to sub this in here and write the final equation. So y equals 2x minus 1 squared plus 4. And that will be your final answer. That will be the equation that will lead into having this graph. Now, let's do one more example. We start by recognizing where our vertex is. So this is our vertex. Make sure you pay attention to the scale. So here this is 5, so that means here the scale goes up by 1, and here the same thing. So this is negative 3. So that means our vertex is at negative 3, 1. And then we want to find one point. I've picked this one. You could have picked this one as well. Doesn't matter. And so this is the point I've picked that I'm going to substitute. The coordinates of this point is negative 5 and 0. The vertex is negative 3 and 1. Again, the first one is h and the second one is k. So I'm ready to substitute in my equation. So a x minus h squared plus k. And y equals a. Now in bracket, if h is negative 3, that means here I'm going to put plus 3 squared. You remember it's always opposite in sign, plus k, and the k is 1. And now I have to sub the other point. I have to sub the other point, which in this case is negative 5 and 0. So sub negative 5 and I am going to sub the point in. So y is 0. 0 equals a. We don't know. We're trying to figure out. X is negative 5. So negative 5 plus 3 squared plus 1. Plus 1. The k value is actually 1. Now again, we have to start with brackets in terms of order of operations. So negative 5 plus 3 will be negative 2. So 0 equals a times negative 2 squared plus 1. The next thing we have to do is exponents, but mass. So don't forget the bracket. Negative 2 squared is actually 4. So 0 equals a times 4, which is 4a plus 1. Now what we want to do is we want to isolate 4a. That means 1 has to go to the other side, so it becomes negative. We subtract it, equals 4a. Negative 1 equals 4a. 0 minus 1 is negative 1. Now, in order to isolate a, we divide both sides by 4. So a equals negative 1 over 4. And now we are ready to write our equation. So y equals a is negative 1, 4, x plus 3 squared plus 1, and this will be the final equation for this parabola. I will finish this lesson with one last example. So the scale here goes up by 1. The vertex 1, 2, 3. This is 4 and this is 5. So the vertex is at 4 and 5. So vertex is at 4 and 5. So we are ready to get started. X minus h squared plus k. So we know our h and k. So y equals, we don't know a. H is 4, so here you are going to have minus 4. You know the opposite, plus 5. Now we need to sub a point to be able to find a. So this is the point I've picked, which is 3 and 3. So sub the point 3 and 3, x and y. So they're both the same actually. So y is 3 equals a, and then 3 minus 4 squared plus 5. Remember, the first thing you need to do is the brackets. So 3 equals a. 3 minus 4 is negative 1 squared plus 5. Then we have to do exponents. Don't forget that you need your brackets. So negative 1 squared equals 1. So 3 equals, you won't write, you can write 1a plus 5. You always write the number before the variable. Now you want to isolate the 1a first. So 5 goes to the other side. So you subtract it, equals 1a. 3 minus 5 is negative 2 equals 1a. And then 1a is the same as a. So a will be negative 2. And now we are going to sub this in our equation and write the final answer. Equals negative 2 x minus 4 squared plus 5. So this is our lesson for today. In our next lessons in this unit, we are going to look at some word problems and use our knowledge to do some word problems. Enjoy the rest of your day and stay safe. Goodbye.